Today I set a house aflame in Blender. I started out by creating the walls for the first floor of the house. I added some variation to the walls so that the house didn't look stale. I used Boolean modifiers to make the windows and doors of the house. After this, I started making the second floor of the house and adding various roofs. After modeling the very basic structure of the house, it was time to apply textures. I started the main wall texture by using a brick texture with light blue colors. I then added a wave texture on top of the brick texture to make the tiles look three-dimensional. Upon reviewing some pictures of houses, I found that a lot of the houses had this brick-like rock texture at the base of their house, so I tried to remake it in Blender. Plugging a Voronoi texture into a brick texture seemed to work the best. After this, I just copied and pasted this texture to the various parts of the house and then started working on detail. I added some wood-like texture for beams going around the house. Using a noise texture displacement with high distortion worked the best. Next, I started modeling the garage doors. They were simple with some windows and a couple of other details. At this point, I was done with the major details and basic structure of the house. So I started putting in window panes and some interior textures. I used a brick texture to create tiles for the floor. I then used a landscape mesh and geometry nodes to add grass to the scene. After adding the grass, I also added a sidewalk and drive-through to the scene. The scene was still looking pretty empty, so I added trees using the sapling tree gen add-on. Most people probably use HDRs to add backgrounds to scenes. However, I have found that they aren't necessary in low lighting environments. Using simple planes allows for greater and quicker creativity, so I used a gradient texture with some noise texture to make this background. Next, I added fire to the scene because I wanted to see how it would look. I didn't do high quality bake initially. Before adding fire to the rest of the second floor, I worked on some minor details and lighting for the scene. For the lighting, I added cone lights to the driveways and sidewalk, and put an emission behind them. I also lit the top of the garage door to create a gradient and highlight the textures. Finally, once I was done with the lights and minor details, I added the rest of the fires to the top floor. Here is the final result.